So what's the best way for someone to get help? Viewers are telling us they can't get through after spending hours trying, or they get through, but the person they talk to can't help them.
Yeah, unfortunately, this has been a very, very difficult time. We have had to just basically expand capacity overnight in the wake of this avalanche of demand. And so we're doing a number of different things to assist our customers, and they all have to come together to really help alleviate any of the strain on the system. Number one, a lot of people don't have to call to talk to a representative. They can go ahead and get a claim filed and even their payments made without having to talk to a representative. There are great self-serve tools available and a lot of good. We're changing up our top FAQs, frequently asked questions, on our website every week, responding to those most common questions we hear. So hopefully between all those self-service type of options we offer, plus we have now hired or make additional job offers to more than 4,300 new staff. So that's what we're trying to bring on, is new staff. Those things combined, we think, will really help open up those call center lines, reduce the need to call, reduce the calls, and allow those people who actually have to speak to a representative to have a much easier time getting through.
And getting money, some of our viewers are writing to us saying they've been waiting a couple of months for payment. What's the best way to resolve situations like that?
Well, unfortunately, it all kind of depends on the circumstances with that claim. It continues to be the situation for most people, the vast majority of people. We can go ahead and collect the information, automatically process that claim through the adjustments we've made in our UI online system, and get that first payment issued if the individual is eligible within about 3 weeks. But those more complex cases are always going to take longer, whether we're in a pandemic or not. And those have to do with verifying someone's identity, doing a wage investigation, or in many cases, people are making mistakes. They're not completing something properly. They're sending documents to the wrong address, and then therefore that unnecessarily delays payment. So it really all kind of depends on what someone's circumstances are. If they're more of a complex claim, those have to be done manually by staff. So I want people to know that we have redirected hundreds of staff to this effort. We've put in automation in place to help us expedite this effort. So we really are doing everything we can to make sure anyone who may have some back issues with the claim gets resolved, and gets resolved as quickly as possible.
And what's the average time for EDD to follow up on an issue or request for help? How long should it take for people to hear back?
Yeah, and again, it just so depends on someone's circumstances. We found situations by which, like I said, someone had sent identity documents to the wrong address, and we have offices throughout the state. So we had to do a lot of search to try to find those documents so that we can verify someone's identity. It could very well be, I've talked to a couple of different people who filed in March, and they said, oh, I've received nothing, only to come to find out that person was self-employed. We had no way of being able to take self-employment income prior to the launch of our pandemic unemployment assistance program at the end of April. So I informed those individuals, if you're truly self-employed and you try to file before April 28th, you need to get back in and file now. Now we have the opportunity to be able to look at that 1099 wage information and to be able to go ahead and make that determination for a PUA claim. So it really all depends on someone's circumstances, and we're doing everything we can to get information out there to assist people through the process.
And so a PEUC and FedEd extensions, some people are kind of confused about how that all works. I've been seeing kind of Facebook groups, people kind of questioning, so what do I do? What happens now? If you could elaborate a little bit more on that. For example, like what they are, how long do they last, how much they pay, who's eligible, who needs to apply, that kind of stuff.
Oh boy, I don't blame people for being confused about this at all. The regular unemployment insurance program offers up to 26 weeks of benefits, and that has a lot of complexities to it because it is an eligibility-based insurance program. So you had to have coverage, for instance, and for most of us, that's paid for by our employer. Then you add in all the Federal CARES Act provisions, what you're talking about there, the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, which is an extra 13 weeks of benefits. And then there's that separate program, and it's called the FedEd here in California, and it can provide additional weeks of benefits when states hit certain unemployment criteria. We're certainly in that now. So what we've done recently is with some state legislation, we've been able to maximize the federal funding support available. So now there is this additional 20 extra weeks of benefits in a Fed Ed extension, and it's paid for 100% by the federal government. And it's now 20 weeks rather than the normal 13 weeks. So for anybody, what does this mean in their extensions? If you run out of your up to 26 weeks of benefits on your regular claim, then you run out of your up to 13 weeks of benefits on that PEUC extension, then we are going in and trying to identify who those people are and automatically filing, if you're eligible, that next 20-week Fed Ed extension. So people don't have to worry about what they do. We're sweeping our systems to find out who is running out of that PEUC extension, and we're sending them a notice to letting them know, if you're eligible for Fed Ed, we'll file it for you. If not, we might be able to file a PUA claim for you or get you back on a PUA claim. We're trying to do whatever we can to minimize any gap in collecting benefits that someone might encounter through these different programs.
So when someone sees that notice, when they log into their account and see that, it should be good, right? They shouldn't, we have to apply or anything. It just basically notice for them to be aware.
Right. We're trying to take care of the filing for them, so that's something they don't have to worry about. What they do have to do, and what's required of every claimant, is you have to go in, and once that's available to you, do your normal bi-weekly certification. It's that process every 2 weeks of answering some basic questions, which confirms for the EDD whether you remain unemployed or working reduced hours, and you're eligible to receive that next 2-week bi-weekly payment. So once that's done for you, watch your updates on that UI online account, and then go in and certify right away. And once for that time period that's covered, and we'll get that benefit payment out to you if you're eligible.
What are some of the top easily avoidable mistakes people are making that hold up some of their payments?
You know, we found a couple of different things. Number one, and as a matter of fact, we're putting some additional tip language information into our UI online account application. For instance, on that 2-week, that bi-weekly certification that people have to do to tell us they're eligible, there's question number 1 and question number 2 that seem to be stumping some people, and they're answering it in a way which doesn't apply to them and that could unnecessarily delay their payments. For example, the first question asks, were you too sick to work during this time period? And people are answering yes. And if you answer yes, you're not available to go to work when called upon, so you'll be disqualified from getting benefits for that week. And when we go back and we follow up with somebody, they say, no, I wasn't too sick. There's just all this COVID out there. The question applies directly to you. And the same with the second question, were you available to work? Overall, we're putting in some tip language that says, as long as you were available, you weren't too sick, you were available to return to work if your business called upon you, then go ahead and answer yes. And that hopefully will help people avoid some of those mistakes that could unnecessarily delay payment.
And I know there's a
Or
lot
in
of
other words, I'm
yeah.
sorry, let me clarify.
Yeah.
So if indeed you were available, you weren't too sick, you were available to go to work, and you say, were you too sick? You answer no. And if were you available to go to work? Yes. So you want to make sure that if indeed, look at your situation and answer those questions accordingly, not what you think you know out there and the other, it's really what applies to you.
And so are there any benefits dependent on whether I guess the impact of COVID? Because I know everything's kind of impacted by COVID, but I think people are kind of confused, like, okay, when it comes to like being able to be eligible for work.
Yeah, we know that work is very hard to come by right now. There's a lot of, obviously we still have quarantine situations. So because of that, we've been able to adjust our normal eligibility requirements. So it really is a situation as long as you remain available. You're not too sick, you're available to go to work when called upon, then that's how you need to go ahead and respond to those questions. And that, being available is really what's important. It won't prevent you from getting in any benefit payments if indeed you haven't been able to go back to work. We understand that.
And does Fed Ed pay the same as standard unemployment with the state?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, Fed Ed. Does the Fed Ed payment, is that the same as the state? Will people see a difference in pay when they get that check?
Typically, no. However, in this particular program, it does operate a little differently. The rules are a little different. It could be a little stricter monetary requirement for somebody to be eligible for a Fed Ed extension. So in other words, the earnings that you made that based your regular unemployment insurance claim could be a little different. And if indeed you're not found eligible, you don't meet that requirement as required by law, then that's when we're going to look to see if maybe we can get you into a PUA claim, a pandemic unemployment assistance claim, or return you to one and hopefully minimize any gap in benefit payments for you.
My next question is something that I saw in the FAQs.
Uh-huh.
This was just like one of the FAQs, like I was laid off due to a lack of customers at my employer's business establishment because of COVID-19. I'm currently receiving regular UI benefits. With the reopening of businesses in certain industries, employers are advertising jobs in my community. The amount of salary being offered is less than what I receive in unemployment benefits. Will I lose my regular UI benefits if I refuse these job offers? And when I was reading that, I wanted to clarify, it states as a response, individuals are required to accept what is considerable suitable work, which includes working at prevailing wage based on an individual's particular skills or occupation. What exactly is suitable work in terms of you guys?
You know, that's a good question, and we're trying to develop some further guidance because things kind of all change, you know, a little bit, and how can it be interpreted in a pandemic situation like this? But typically, it means the kind of work that you were doing before, the kind of work that you're skilled for. You know, if that's being offered, and if it's being offered in a safe way, your employer has provided, you know, a safe work environment, for example, or you've got some teleworking options, then really, if you refuse that job offer, you could very well lose eligibility for benefits. However, it really does have to be suitable work. And so sometimes that's kind of made on a case-by-case determination. So if you do refuse work, there is a question on the biweekly certification that says, did you refuse any work? And you must go ahead and let us know about that. We'll go ahead and follow up with you on a determination if we need any further information. So it's one of those things where it kind of is a case-by-case basis, and it could be a little bit more strict under a Fed Ed situation. You might have to accept work, for example, that might pay you a little less in order to maintain eligibility for a Fed Ed if indeed you refuse that. So again, it really kind of depends on the individual circumstances, and we'll try to keep people informed as to what that means as much as we can on our website.
How about teachers as well? Are teachers able to be qualified for unemployment? I know it's a little bit tricky right now with
Yeah.
summer, but that's one of the questions that we got.
And there is an FAQ on that as well, because yeah, we do understand that's a big question right now. And what we've been informed by the USDOL is what you must apply the rules that typically apply for any kind of break in school schedule, whether that be a spring break or a summer break. Really, the overriding concern here is if indeed you've got something to return to, you anticipate going back to work in the fall, that typically means teachers are not eligible for unemployment benefits during a break. But it really all depends on whether or not you've got that reassurance that you are going to be returning to a job in the fall. So it is one of those kind of case-by-case situations, but generally speaking, in most cases, teachers, when they get into a break, summer break, spring break, they're not eligible to receive unemployment benefits unless there's some other things involved.
And another viewer question asked, they're a landlord, and so they're not getting money coming in from tenants, or it's pretty much empty, the property that they have. Would they be able to qualify for unemployment if their main income is being a landlord?
Well, and then they could be a business owner in that case. And in those situations, they could be eligible for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. That's the brand new program that was established by the Federal CARES Act that we implemented at the end of April here in California. So I would encourage anyone who is not quite sure, please don't hesitate. Go ahead and apply. You go through our normal UI online system, and then we collect information from you. We determine whether or not there's enough in W-2 wages reported by an employer to support a regular unemployment insurance claim. And if not, in the case of someone who's truly self-employed or a business owner, if there's some 1099 information, income information that we can use to substantiate a PUA claim. So I don't encourage that individual, go ahead and apply.
Is there another thing that maybe people should be aware of that we didn't bring up?
I think things continue to evolve so quickly in this pandemic situation. We're getting out a news release today that kind of helps people understand, like, some people may return to work for a while, and then maybe that business has to shut down again for a while. If that's the case, people, when they open their claim, it's good for about a year. And if they stop certifying for a while, no problem. They still have some time to come back and collect on any balance they have on that claim. And that's a process of simply reopening your claim through UI Online, a bit of an abbreviated process. So we have some information in our news release on that we're getting out today. And I think overall, this just lends to that whole idea of I want everyone to understand that we care very, very deeply about our neighbors, our communities in California, which is why we continue to work around the clock, literally on holidays, weekends, at a very exhausting pace, trying to make sure that we get everybody served. So if you are eligible and you're found eligible for any weeks of benefits that we haven't got to yet, we will get you paid. So hang in there with us as we quickly expand our staffing, and then please help us with self-serving wherever possible, because that'll truly help us as well.
Kind of tying in with kind of suitable work. Is someone's employer, they're considered more of an essential worker, but their employer isn't doing enough to protect them while they're at work and they may have underlying issues. How do they go about it? Because they may be worried that they would not qualify for unemployment. Any advice?
Like I said, we do have some good frequently asked questions on our website about that to try to provide a little guidance. For instance, we do have a link to the CDC, or certainly here in California, what we consider, those conditions that might put somebody in a health risk category. If that's the case, it's quite possible you may need to refuse work depending upon what your work situation is. So I would, first of all, encourage people, please learn all you can. Learn all the information that we have on our website. And if indeed you've already been collecting unemployment and you feel like you need to refuse that job offer, make sure you indicate that on your biweekly certification. Or if you haven't applied for benefits yet and you believe you're now getting to the point where you're unemployed or losing hours through no fault of your own, go ahead and apply, and we'll look at your circumstances on a case-by-case basis for your eligibility.